we are always, this is what we do, we did it again tonight, we are always critical in our own arena, which is a good thing. Except that in the public eye, when we criticize ourselves, we neglect also to speak in the public eye about the value of what we do. And so I think over time, our unrelenting self-criticism simply in the public mind becomes something that says the academics themselves do not believe in the value of what they do. We've been, in my view, neglectful in making the value, the essence of what we do, the exercise of reason. We've been neglectful in not making the value of that manifest. And my plea is that we should turn our minds to making the social value of universities more visible to the public eye.
Do you want to respond to
I just want to say, I really hope we don't do or create more ranking systems. It would be an incredible waste of time. And we can't afford it. I mean, South Africa really, I mean, I said to Nico Kluter when they came up with this African ranking system, surprise, surprise, UCT is on top, Makerere comes on 12. What are you improving? All you in fact doing is to certify privilege. And guess what? You go. That is not amazing. Having said that, you don't need a ranking system for universities to know where they stand.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And this is very, very important. And therefore, you won't send your kid to the University of Venda if you could help it, but you would send your kid to BITS and so on and so forth. So we must understand this is powerful. I don't think there's a way out of this conundrum that universities are, and vice chancellors too, by their nature competitive. And therefore, so my argument has always been, when I was vice chancellor, I said, don't ignore the rankings completely, but look at what we can learn from them so that we can improve things that we do. But we're not certainly going to try and get onto any of those things. So, for example, one of the things, and here the rankings are probably, if you think it's clumsy, in general, it's particularly clumsy in measuring what good teaching is. They are, in fact, a small classroom teaching 1 to 15 kids. That tells you nothing, okay, about good teaching. And so how about we develop metrics for that? Not to compete, but in order to learn about how we can do better at what I think is still our most fundamental mission, and that is to teach well in the context of our path.
Well, news for you, Prof, is that Times Area is working on the teaching.
No, I've looked at that. I've actually got a postdoc that's just looking at the development of that, so we've got an access. Trust me, don't hold your breath. Okay.
Okay, I think we have time for another really quick round, and then I want to ask them to sum up. Chris, I think, wants to come back on some of these points that our colleagues raised.
Could I interrupt you? I thought that the right-hand signal here at Kingsway Road was a right turn, the green. It turned out to be a bus signal, so I smashed up a guy's car, and my rental has to go in before I can take my flight, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I knocked into him, and he jumped out of the car, and he said, "Oh, Professor Jansen, is it you?" He said, so I was quite relieved it was my student, except he then said, I didn't do too well in your class, so if you don't mind if I can slip out,
sure.
And go sort out my...
Thanks for coming.
No, sure. So sorry to disrupt. Thank you.
Okay, let's give it over for Jonathan. Jonathan.
Don't go with that.
Don't go with you. Okay. Right. Let's go. Let's go to this.
May have some slogans, but
let's go to this side here and take one or two questions. So I've got Eddie and then Kinta, and I'll take one more very quickly. So Eddie.
I'm interested. I run the Southern Centre for Equality Studies at this university. I'm sorry that Jonathan has left because it's partly him, but what comes across in that is excellent, fascinating discussion of this tension between excellence and purpose. What comes across to me is I think the South African universities actually are very much aware of their purpose and are responding, and maybe Chris will expect a little more coming from the UK. But the question I'm interested in is that everyone seems to agree that once you're in this position, you can't do much about it. Jonathan says you don't have much of power outside, and these structures, you're trapped in this system. And I guess the question is, what would happen if you tried to de-link?
Okay.
De-link, that's a relative de-linking from the system. And why has no Vice Chancellor tried that? Or what would happen if you said, well, I'm not interested in this, and I'm going to respond to what Chris is calling the purpose, and this is what we do, and so on. What would happen?
Okay, de-linking.
De-linking, relative de-linking.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to break from the world.
Yeah, let me take Kinta and then Shireen and you very quickly.
I just also want to say thank you for the presentations and the stimulating conversation. My question is just, given now that we have the expertise in the room, what will be the soul like in 30 years' time of the university? How should it be? The real world, maybe this is the ideal world, at least 30 years' time. For us also to assist us in planning.
It's a question for a philosopher too. Shireen.
I just want to say that I think that one of the most powerful things that came out of the Peace Must Fall protests was that it put the issue of inequality in our society very firmly on the table. Because what the students were actually asking for was for looking at the social cost of education. And in that, I think, within the higher education sector, we need to locate our debates much more within the broader political economy, which we sometimes do and sometimes don't. Get caught up in just acknowledging other things. The second thing is that I think that one of the biggest challenges, which all the speakers spoke to, is the issue of a highly differentiated higher education system. I think that's the next big challenge that's going to come. The difference between Wits and Benda and Unizul and KwaZulu-Natal is in some ways a ticking time bomb that is going to manifest itself in different sorts of ways. And the final was just to Jonathan. I think what we haven't dealt with we've been a bit coy about dealing with in South Africa for the last 25 years is the issue of identities, racial identities, racialized identities, and the new class identities. And I think the students' protests, express that in so many different ways. And I think within that, I think the voice of the student continues to be less visible and heard than we should feel.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I'm Gert van der Westhuizen from Education Faculty at UJ. I wanted to say that I appreciate this conversation around that topic of the soul of a university. I trust that we will have lots of dialogue around and some soul searching around what we are doing in the academy. And I think one of the key points we have to stick with is to go back to the nature of disciplines, disciplinary knowledges, and how disciplines have been created and how they are still holding us captive. I think there's a need to rethink the disciplines and how the disciplines can be exclusionary